Millions of Americans didn't have enough food to eat in 2022 compared to 2021. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, it was the largest increase of food insecurity and hunger in more than a decade. Food insecurity is a growing problem in our community, but we are fortunate there are organizations tackling the problem and helping to find ways to alleviate hunger. Sherrie Tussler is Chief Executive Officer of Hunger Task Force, Wisconsin's leading anti-hunger organization and Milwaukee's free and local food bank. Thank you for being with us to discuss this critically important topic in our community, Sherrie.
Thanks for having me on.
Can you help us understand the level of hunger that exists in Milwaukee now?
Well, 1 in 4 children wake up in the morning without food in the house. They're relying on that school breakfast program. Lots of parents are worried about the ability to purchase food. Rising costs of food have really impacted people, the changes in the economy. And then there's been less support from the federal government since the end of the public health emergency. So people are struggling.
How do you see that comparing to what we have seen over the past couple of years with the impact of the pandemic?
Well, the pandemic brought a lot of bad news to everybody, but it also made us rally around things like hunger. A lot of people lost their jobs very quickly at the beginning of the public health emergency, and food share was bolstered by the federal government and actually had increased benefits called emergency allotments. And so even though there were more hungry people than ever, there were fewer visits to Milwaukee's food pantries because people could go to the grocery store and shop for food. Unfortunately, in March of this year, all of those emergency allotments were ended, and we returned to what would be our new normal, which is people getting very low benefits once again and experiencing more hunger as a result.
Can you give us an idea of what that benefit change has looked like for people? What kind of a difference it has made in the dollars that they have coming in to help support their search for food?
Sure. For example, a person living on Social Security income or a senior living on SSI might experience in the pandemic $250 worth of food share on a monthly basis. That has returned to the normal allotment of $23 per month. And so going from $250 for your food buying budget to $23 is a substantial difference, and it's caused great harm for those older adults and people who are differently abled.
And we also have seen similar changes to that and some of the emergency allocations that may have been made for families with children as well.
Absolutely. On average, about $250 per person per household was lost during that pandemic or from the pandemic into the current period. And as a result, people are visiting food pantries again in higher numbers. They're at soup kitchens and homeless shelters. Our meals programs during the summer were back up. Kids were eating in parks, and thankfully the parks were there to help them, but we're back to relying primarily on charity.
How does Hunger Task Force provide support to families and individuals? They don't necessarily come to the task force itself, but how is that support provided by Hunger Task Force?
Sure. Hunger Task Force is your local food bank. We're free. And what we do is we supply food pantries, soup kitchens, and homeless shelters with a supply of food that's healthy and nutritious. And they, in turn, serve people that would visit them. We also work with senior public dining sites here in Milwaukee and senior public housing to distribute something called the Stock Box on a monthly basis. And then we have something called the Mobile Market, which is a grocery store on wheels, a partnership that we have with Piggly Wiggly, where when people go on board, they get 50% off of the food that they shop for. And those are just a few of the things that we do. I could go on forever, but our time is limited.
You mentioned healthy food. That is one of the things that also makes Hunger Task Force unique, that focus on healthy food.
Yeah, the source of our food is government commodities, which are USDA grade A, donated food that people gift to us, and we sort through to make sure that it's not expired and in good condition. And then finally, foods that we purchase outright and give away using donor resources from groups like, say, Kohl's department stores. And so those foods are not rescued, not foods that would otherwise be wasted. And that's a difference maker between the Hunger Task Force and a group like Feeding America, which is a national organization.
You're also unique because we're at the end of the growing season now, but you all actually have a farm where you are able to grow food and then share that with people who need food. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we made an investment back in 2006, and we have hired a half a dozen farmers and some farm hands, and together we grow about 500,000 pounds of produce. So it is a legitimate farm. It's not an urban garden. We own tractors. We're out there growing 26 different kinds of produce, both fruit and vegetables, that we then infuse into the food pantry, soup kitchen, and homeless shelter network that we give to those seniors getting stock box so that they can have access to healthy food, because that's what people really want, is fresh produce.
What are things that folks can do? Is there certain kind of food that you need? Can people make direct donations online? How can people help?
Sure. I always tell people to do what they feel that they want to do. So if they want to volunteer, go online and volunteer, sign up to do that. If they want to make a gift of money, we can use that to purchase foods on a wholesale rather than a retail basis. If they have some food that they want to donate or organize a food drive, now is the time to do that. So there's many, many ways to get involved, but hopefully this conversation about hunger makes you concerned for your neighbor, makes you want to make a difference, and then you can get involved, because it's important that everyone work together to end hunger.
This time of the year is a time when people tend to think more about hunger in our community, even though it is there every single day. What can people do? Are there some drives that you'll be holding, or other things that people can do to make a difference now?
Yeah. They can organize a food drive. And when they do that, if they can ask for healthy foods, that's important. And at this time of year in particular, it's the holidays. And imagine what it would be like to be a person who didn't have a holiday meal, that there's not enough food in your house to produce that meal for your kids or your grandkids. And so at this time of year, we actually ask for some of those special holiday foods as well. It's nice to give a turkey or a ham. It's nice to give some of the sides and fixings that you normally wouldn't think to give to a food drive, because what you're doing is you're dignifying somebody else's holiday. You're being compassionate and giving them the help that they need.
Sherrie, I'm really struck by the word that you just used there, which is to dignify someone else. And thanks for the work that you and others do to make sure that everyone in our community has not only enough food to eat, but the dignity that goes along with being able to put food on the table. We appreciate the work you do, and thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on. It was really nice to talk.
Thank you. We'll be right back.